What's up, guys? Welcome back to WCS America. I'm axeltoss, joined by axslav, currently watching the first match of the night, a series between, of course, Scarlett and Jim. And if you're just now joining us, well, better late than ever. I mean, we still got the most important game of this match coming up.
That's right, it's 1-1. Whoever wins this third game into best of 3 is going to advance straight to the Premier League. The loser will have to battle out in the group stages, and that's never a fun thing because only half the people from the group stages advance, and the other half we're going to be either eliminated entirely or back into another season of Challenger League. And both these players are so talented.
Yes.
It's like Premier Division kind of wants both of them, you could say, but that's the way this works. There's so much skill in WCS America.
I know, that's like, it almost feels like an understatement too, because I mean, we have Polt versus Tasia coming up. Either Polt or Tasia is dropping down to the group stages. That's happening. We already have Sage in group stages. We already have Jaedong in group stages. So many others, really good names. Awesome stuff here at WCS America. Every single match has been phenomenal. So many awesome storylines. But here we are in a very important game for these two individuals. We are live right now. Hashtag WCS. Tell your friends to watch WCS America. But here we are in game number 3 on Neo Planet S in the bottom left-hand location. We have the blue Protoss player who fell in game 1 but came up with a crafty all-in in game 2 to tie up the series. Representing Team Invictus Gaming and hailing from China, he is Jim. Has been at the top of the Korean Grandmaster ladder many a time. I feel like I'm not saying that too much because that's such an important thing to know, and it's such a huge deal. But his opponent, oh my God, that's a very early pull in the top right-hand location. It's the Red Zerg player hailing from Canada, representing Team Acer. She is Scarlett.
Going for the 8 pool.
Yeah.
And this is kind of interesting because she could be doing this because she's noticed that he hasn't scouted yet in any of these games. But he's also been doing a gateway expand every game. And if you do the gateway expand where you start the Zealot, and then you cancel it if no Zerglings come and you build the Nexus, you're usually going to beat these early spawning pools, except, oh, he got the second gas before the second pylon, which means he won't be able to start that Zealot until the pylon completes. And I mean, it's a 10-second difference, but 10 seconds is actually pretty important.
That's a couple probes that could die potentially. Probes losing mining time.
How much damage these Zerglings can get done is going to be super important. Of course, I mean, they have to kill a lot of probes, but they're going to be able to do some damage. It's all going to come down to micro here.
Zealot just now started. Let's see if Scarlett tries to target down that pylon too, because there's only one pylon powering that gateway. Going after the probes for now. Jim trying to do a little bit of a mineral walk to try to trap these Zerglings. 2 more Zerglings coming in here, and Scarlett actually doing a decent amount of damage. The Zealot going to be chrono boosted here, try to get that guy out. He wants him out as fast as possible, so he can help deal against the Lings. A decent surround there on the probe. Scarlett trying to get that damage done, but the Zealot is now out. So she's going to try to proc and prod, try to get some more probe kills, but Jim actually doing a solid job. Losing a bit of probes. It's hard to say right now.
I mean, 7 probes is more than ideally you'd want to lose, but I still think he's fine because of how early that spawning pool was. The working out's going to get pretty even pretty soon as the first inject kicks in, and Scarlett can really use that to build a lot of drones. But remember, there's no expansion quite yet from Scarlett. It's about to be thrown down right now. And Jim also has this mothership core, which is, of course, going to basically force all these Zerglings out. The attack's going to be over. I would imagine he's just going to go ahead and take his Nexus behind us, but he's going to be a little bit safer and get that Stalker first.
Okay.
And that Stalker can actually be very annoying. He pushes across the map with the Zealot Stalker mothership core.
In fact, I think that's what he's going to do. Jim's going to realize that Scarlett invested a lot into those early links, sacrificed a lot of that economy, and he's also going to realize that she's probably trying to drone back up to try to get even in the workers, to try to get, presumably ahead. That's the whole point of doing aggression like that, so you can drone up behind it. And Jim's going to say, no, I'm not going to let that happen. Might push across the field. And even if he just goes halfway, even if he just posts the natural expansion, forces Scarlett to make some units, that's already going to be a victory for him. So, pretty interesting play here. Electing to be a little bit aggressive, presuming he decides to go out. But there's always a danger of Scarlett potentially storing up Lings.
Exactly.
So you always have to be aware of that.
And I kind of like what he's doing. He's keeping the Zealot and your mothership core back at home. That should be enough if there's a small number of Zerglings, like 3 to 6. He won't lose his natural expansion. There's a lot of Zerglings. Most of core could run back, forth and overcharge the main, and you'd be fine as well. But he's sending the Stalker to scout and harass, knowing that, okay, the Stalker, it can be out there, it's faster than Zerglings. If she gets speed leans and kills it, well, no, she got speed very early, and that can just make a very tight defense and be ahead that way. So a really nice heads-up play, keeping the Zealot Militia Core back in case of, like you mentioned, a stored-up Zergling attack. But using that Stalker to try to figure out exactly what's going on.
Immediately placing down a robotics facility. Kind of an interesting start to this game, so we're not necessarily going to see the same standard stuff from both of these two players, you know, because of how it started. But as it stands, Scarlett up 30-22 in the Harvester. Speed is on the way. Warp Gate about to finish, but we're not seeing any additional gateways being added on just yet, so it's not like Jim is trying to follow this up with any sort of gateway timing. What we could do is try to go for some Immortal buffs that can be decent on this map, but a characteristic of Neoplanet S is the two pathways. You know, you have to be really aware as a Protoss player of those two pathways, where your opponent is likely to come. And as a Zerg player, you can just wait until your opponent moves out one and then use your highly mobile speedling to do a counterattack. So Jim has to look out for that.
Jim also, he's had a really hard time getting a good economy. And it's not that he's been missing probe production. The fact is that he's only had one Nexus for a very long time. And while, yes, Scarlett was only on one hatchery for a long time, she had a hatchery plus a queen, so she was producing a drone, you know, like something like a drone every 8 seconds or so, whereas he was really only producing a probe every 20 seconds. So that's how she's been able to get significantly ahead in economy, and that's going to be a problem for Jim going forward.
Now Jim is playing very safe as it stands, getting an Observer as the first unit out of that robo, sending that hallucinated Phoenix across the map to find out what's going on, identifying the lack of a third base here, and he also saw the 2 evolution chambers in his opponent's main base, so, and also the 2 gases mining in the main base as well. So he should be relatively aware of what's going on. Lair now on the way here from Scarlett. The question is, what does Jim do? Okay.
Looks like he's going to build up Immortals. It's hard to tell what he plans to do with them. The fact that he's chrono boosting the robotics facility instead of the Nexuses indicates some type of 2-base timing. It's interesting that he's not getting a 3rd and 4th gas, so that means he's not going to do the insanely sentry-heavy 2-base timing, and he's only on 3 warp gates, so
unless he adds on a bunch of gateways, I mean,
yeah, he's going to do that now, but it's kind of late.
Yeah, it is.
By the time he hits, he's going to be 1-1 upgrades onto speedlings, which means that Zealots, Stalkers, Immortals, everything's going to die to speedlings unless he can hit the best force fields of his lifetime.
And maybe a Time Warp or something. And he always, again, Neoplanet S, I can't harp on it enough, the 2 pathways. Scarlett's going to have the ability to counterattack. So Jim realizing that, putting a pylon down, only going with 2 Immortals here. Going to try to hit before 1-1, but I don't think that's going to happen. 1-1 about to finish, Infestation Pit on the way. 3 Spinecrawlers being added on here for Scarlett. Now I'm going to be interested to see, does she go for the 3rd?
This is a really interesting point because Scarlett is not going to try to defend the 3rd if Jim goes for it, but if Jim goes for it, that'll buy Scarlett the time to finish these Spinecrawlers, and then the attack will be over. Of course, it'll be 2 base to 2 base, maybe he can back up and take a 3rd, but I think with the tech advantage Scarlett has with the upgrades Infestation Pit,
8 Spinecrawlers.
He has to kill the natural now, but he's scared to go far into creep because look at his army. There's only 3 Zealots with it until just now. If he went deep into creep and there was a speeding surround, he'd be torn to pieces. He
doesn't really have a backup plan either. Again, there's no 3rd behind this, no additional pros being made. Jim is very committed to this, making a lot of Zealots too, realizing that Scarlett's going for pretty much exclusively Zerglings, but Pathogen Glands is on the way, so Scarlett will be able to add on Festers fairly soon. And, again, she has 8 Spinecrawlers in her natural expansion. Jim is going to be tested here. I don't know if he can break this, but with Superb Micro, it's possible.
It's going to be very difficult. Zealot and Immortal is actually a very good combination against Speed and Spinecrawler, but I think the unit count is in Scarlett's favor there with the 4 Queens and, like you said, 8 Spinecrawlers. He's so committed, he just has to keep warping Zealots and make something happen because once the Infestors get out, Chain Fungals will destroy this army.
It will. And there's not much time until that happens. A Hallucinated Colossus coming forward. This is exactly the timing Jim needs to come in. These 6 Infestors need to pop out here for Scarlett, trying to delay as long as possible, sending in the Speedlings. The Spinecrawlers desperately swiping away as well. The Queens throwing down Transfuses. The Infestors should be popping out any second. The Fungals need to be great here from Scarlett. Got to nail those. There we go. Hitting the Immortals, hitting the Sentries, hitting the Zealots as well. And I think Scarlett might be able to hold this off.
No problem at all. Wow. So many of those units were hallucinations, and now she's pushing forward. Not enough speedings to run down and take out that force, but just the defense. Yeah. The 3rd base will probably end up being sacrificed here, but with that Infestor count as it regenerated energy, they're almost like a base in and of itself. Just energy regen, how much stronger your army will get.
And the Mothership Core is gone, so you can't recall that army out. So Scarlett adding on a lot of speedlings here, might try to maneuver the infestors to prevent Jim from returning home. That would be a little bit interesting to see. Going to take down some pylons, but Jim's still pressing the issue a little bit, really forward with those units. I would be very surprised if he tried to re-engage.
Yeah, he did not want anything to do with that infestor army. And he doesn't gain anything from being in front of her base because he knows he can't break the spines.
Yeah.
And the longer he stays out there, the higher probability she'll get enough units to slaughter his army. He can't recall, like you mentioned, his own Mothership Core. And also, she could counterattack, right? Yes, he has a wall, but if a whole bunch of speedings hit that, it's going to be, you know, a little bit painful to constantly warp enough units to defend that. So he's pulling the main army back. He's teching up towards Colossi as well, which is a great tech choice against someone using infestors and speedings.
Absolutely, those Colossi definitely have the ability to just melt away those Zerglings and infestors. Now, Jim is resuming pro production as well, so might try to turn this into a longer game. I'm wondering what the next step of Scarlett here is, because she obviously, I think she did take an advantage based off of what happened just there, taking a third base, going up to Hive. So either this is Ultras, or trying to get Vipers out. I think Ultras makes a little bit more sense, but the problem is, again, she doesn't have that third base up. Her economy isn't too fantastic right now.
Her economy isn't great, but one thing she's doing is that after these next two infestors, she won't have to spend... almost getting run by Jim, so on top of his defense there.
That would have been disastrous.
The third base is vulnerable, though. That Nexus is going to be canceled.
Wow, this is huge, Scarlett. Again, every single moment you can delay a Protoss third, you're going to be a very happy camper indeed. Can the Lings get out? No force field on the ramp. Well, there's a force field, but not trapping any Lings.
I really like how Scarlett's getting Neural Parasite. She's realizing infestors are a big chunk of her army. Like you said, with the third base a little bit slower than normal because of the two-base push, she won't have that many Ultras. But if she can have a bunch of speedings kind of going up the works and a couple Ultras there to help out, if it gives her a buffer time to Neural Parasite all the Robo units, I mean, that would basically instantly win the game. If you Neural Parasite the Mortals and the Colossus, what else is there to really worry about? You Ultra the speedlings with their upgrade advantage will just tear through everything that Jim has.
Very tense moment here. Again, this game very important for both of these two players. The winner will advance to the Premier League of Season 2 of WCS America. Jim going for a bit of an all-in earlier. Scarlett able to hold it off, but now Jim trying to make this game go a little bit longer, trying to get those Colossi on the field, but Scarlett accumulating a pretty formidable force. Lings, Ultras, Infestors, lots of Infestors with Neural Parasite, continuing to try to go for those counterattacks, looking for those run-bys, keeping an eye on her opponent's unit composition.
These Infestors are getting scarier and scarier every second they gain more energy. She was thinking about going for the third base. I like the decision to pull back. She doesn't have...
There's a wall there now. So you can make yourself up there and there's no way out.
Exactly, and she doesn't have so much economy or larva production that she can throw away speedings like you could a little bit later in the game.
If Scarlett can just Neural Parasite everything, not only would that be completely awesome, but to watch. But again, it could secure her the victory. It can be very risky though, because if you miss a Colossus and your opponent starts targeting down your Infestors that are trying to take the mines over of the Protoss army, it can turn very ugly very quickly. So we'll have to see how Scarlett approaches this, but definitely does not want the third to go up.
She's trying to get the creep spread closer so the Queens can take part in the battle. Queens, such an important part of this combination. As the Ultras are popping out and the creep spreads forward, this is when Jim really has to worry about how can he stop this army.
Now, it's a pretty wide open space between the National and third. Here we go. She's going to go for it right now, but the Colossus already doing a lot of damage to the Infestors. A couple Neural Parasites getting off. Is that enough? One Ultra coming into the front to try to get that damage done, but again, only one Neural is on this Colossi. Infested Terran's going down as well, and Jim is actually controlling this very well indeed, even hallucinating a Colossus. And I think Jim is going to be a little bit more happy about that engagement than Scarlett.
He really is. You know, it was off creeps, so the movements weren't so great from Scarlett. And
what put you back up?
I mean, well, the Queens can. So this is a very bad situation. She led the engagement with the Infestors, which is what you can't afford to do. And then what was amazing by Jim is all those hallucinations. I think her Neural Parasites were actually on hallucinations.
How does that work?
Which means that it wasn't very useful. That's how it worked. A brilliant counter by Jim. And now that pretty much equalized the game. Scarlett was in the lead, but now all of a sudden it's anybody's game. Jim's cranking out more and more Immortals. Scarlett adding to Spire, saying, you know what, maybe I need to transition to some airplay to deal with the Colossi count of my opponent. Also remaking 4 Queens, very important. Queens are such an important part of the composition. It sucks to lose them. You have to remake them if you want to have a chance in that next engagement.
Scarlett adding on this 4th base at the right-hand side of the map, and now we're in a little bit of a situation where both these players kind of rebuilding their armies, so they're not necessarily going to want to be aggressive. So a little bit of passive, I don't know what the word is, passivicity. I'm using it. It just happened. But Jim always going to have to be aware of those counterattacks. But we're going to have a 4-base versus 3-base situation, and I wonder who's going to make the next move.
Jim's trying to clear the creep out. Against the type of army Scarlett has as a Protoss, you really want to avoid fighting on creep if possible. Remember game 1, how when he started taking those battles on creep, it really started getting away from him. So he's trying to push their creep teamers out using only the Stalkers, which he's pretty confident can retreat. As long as they don't get caught by fungal growth, but the Observer would see the Infestors coming, they could blink away in time. Very, very important. Now what Scarlett needs to do, she needs to replace down those creep tumors before the creep proceeds.
And I'm sure she's about to do that right away. Scarlett loves her creep spread. Already sending a lot of creep down that bottom pathway toward her opponent's 3rd base, and again, up the top pathway as well. Pretty much every single pathway being focused on here from Scarlett, something she loves to do. But we're seeing Jim kind of slowly start getting a supply lead. 163 to 160 right now, adding on a High Templar Archives. Again, feedback can be great dealing with Infestors, and again, Storm can be great dealing with the Ling play, and High Templar can be made into Archons, which are pretty darn good against an Ultralisk Ling composition. So again, something we're going to have to keep an eye on is the next move. And there we see it, Jim taking a 4th base.
He needs that base. His main is mined out, so he wants to stay on 3-base economy. Scarlett also going to Greater Spire, and that's genius, knowing that her opponent has to be cranking out a lot of Immortals as he's seen all these Ultralists. Scarlett can basically take one battle and do okay in it, and then replenish with Broodlords, while Jim is really still thinking about the Ultralist threat. That could be a great way to win the game.
The creep helping Scarlett out so much. It makes her composition so much more mobile. She has so many units outside of her opponent's 4th base. I'm a little bit surprised she's not going. Now she's going to recognize her opponent's army at the bottom of the map, so I don't see what's going to stop her from preventing that 4th. Maybe she doesn't know about it.
Oh, no, she's going to use the Speedings. No, right, no, the Speedings actually running right by it. Going right for the...
If she can get the natural, that's huge, but yeah. I don't see that happening.
It is kind of interesting. I don't blame her not sending in like the Queens, or they might get stuck there, but the Speedings alone should have easily taken out that Nexus. I mean, they still might with their +3 weapons.
But now Jim is having enough time to kind of retreat and potentially deal with this. Scarlett has Broodlords here ready to go. Let's see if she tries to go for an engagement. Oh, the Stalker's making forward, but the Fungals! Can they go down to prevent that from retreating? One Fungal going down, Scarlett backing away. Broodlord's doing a lot of damage from above, and now Jim has to make the decision. How do I deal with the Broodlords? Do I blink in? But Scarlett not letting him do anything. The Fungal's going down. The Ultra's getting a bunch of damage done to this Protoss army, and the Broodlings doing a ridiculous amount of damage from above as well. The Queens slowly starting to lose their energy, as are the Infestors. Jim being backed into a corner, but does he have enough to hold this 4th base? He needs to hold this 4th.
Oh man, this is a tough situation. Still some Blink Stalkers, but there's enough Broodlords with Infestors. I don't know if the Stalkers can afford to blink under them. The 2 Ultras there are instrumental as well. If the Stalkers try to blink in, Ultras will kill them so fast.
The Stalkers blinking up, targeting down those Broodlords. There's a Fungal onto the Stalkers, and the Ultras starting to swipe away. The Broodlings doing a lot of damage as well, and I think Scarlett might be in a perfect position, taking her opponent off guard with the Broodlord tech switch. She's going to deny this 4th base. And what does Jim do to come back? I'm not sure if it's possible.
Oh man, ideally you have Tempest, but there's no way he can get up to that tech the way this game has gone. His Stalkers are doing a pretty good job.
GG! Whoa. What a match.
Scarlett.
Today's a good day.
Yeah.
Today's a good day. StarCraft 2.
Scarlett really showing just she understands the late game so well in Zerg vs Protoss, knowing that, okay, the power of Zerg is those tech transitions.
Yes. If
you show Ultralisk, your opponent has to go double Robo. And if it stays a low econ game, there's no way a Protoss can get the upgrades they need to do, get the double Robo production. Their next unit they're going to add on is they're going to start getting Blink Research, Charge Research, and Templar for feedbacks. And they have to get all that before they can even think about adding in air units. And so going directly to Broodlords is a great way to say, okay, if I know you're going to be adding on Templar after you get your Robo Army, I'll just add in Broodlords, and that'll beat Blink Stalkers, it'll beat everything but air units. There's no way you're going to have air units at this point in the game.
A game that started with an 8 pool and then goes on to last 25 minutes. Colossi, Blink Stalkers, Broodlords, Ultralisks, Infestors all involved. What a fantastic match from both of the players. Unfortunately for Jim, he's going to be knocked down to the group stage of the Challenger League. But fortunately for Scarlett and any fans out there of her and Team Acer, she's going to be advancing on into the Premier League of Season 2. Again, congrats to Scarlett, taking out Jim 2-1. We got plenty of matches still coming your way. Coming up next, it's going to be Nestea versus Kapach. Another PVZ coming your way in WCS America. Guys, stay tuned. More StarCraft coming up.